All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome, Naomi. I appreciate you joining us today. For
Hello.
those of you who do not know, she is, gosh, a force for change. She has so many different initiatives and things going on. And actually, just before we joined here for a minute, I was kind of just touching base with her on if there was one particular thing she maybe had on her heart that she wanted to focus on. And she said, nope, whatever. I'm good talking about it all. So we're going to just see where the conversation takes us. I'm going to give her a minute to introduce herself and talk about maybe, in a couple sentences, tell everybody who you are and what you do. And then we'll dig into just chatting with each other about different things we've got going on and how we know each other and why we do what we do.
Sure. So, my name is Naomi Riley. I'm an inventor, a motivational speaker, an author, and a brain injury survivor. In 2017, I was in a head on collision that really changed the trajectory of my life. um, I put together a project called the Text Pledge Project back then and thought it would be just a great little distracted driving campaign. And over the course of 4 to 5 years, it became a bigger health type of movement. And so the Text Pledge Project was formed. It's a 10-in-1 smart pledge for students. We developed curriculum for K through 12 schools and individuals, and we keep developing more curriculum. So there's so many cool things about our project. One, our website shares our national statistics on a monthly basis. So every month, a student can go to our website and learn about what the statistics are for distracted driving. They can learn about, what are the statistics for human trafficking, gun violence, and the list goes on. But another important part of our project is that we ask students to raise their mental health, become a little bit more in touch with emotions, and become emotionally intelligent. And so that's really one part of our project. Another part is our programs, our curriculum that can be introduced into the school system. Another part is our crisis lines. I just got word today that our app is almost done. We've gone through a lot of different revisions. So that's really huge for individuals because you can download the Text Pledge app and you're able to have all the nation's 800 numbers that you're ever going to need in the event of a crisis. So I put a lot of time and research into that and just developed a program, and it's become bigger and better than what I've ever thought it could be. So I'm incredibly grateful to my team that I have alongside of me, just developing and keep fostering a great environment for a tax pledge. So
Yeah, it's like semicolon train, right? It's like and then
yeah,
and also you just really that's one of the things that
yeah.
fascinates me is I mean, and the all encompassing. So it's interesting because I don't know that I'd ever the title that you use is for mental health
Mhm.
advocate, right? You're really looking for overall reaching, improving people's well-being, but you're
Mhm.
just doing it in so many ways. And I feel like, 3 days goes by, we don't talk. And the next time I touch base with you, you're like, oh yeah, we also, created a new country and um, just this constant momentum that you have for what are the ways. And I think the ways that you can build on what you're already doing, but then also look for additional initiatives. So
Yes,
I could go on
yeah.
and on, like, I'm hearing it, and every time you go through that list, I just think, gosh, it's so important for us to care about even one of those things, but when you put them all together now the statistics, so it's interesting,
Mhm.
so that's live right now, the site you were talking about where people can go to look at the statistics?
Yeah, you can go to textpledge.us and learn about the website and what it stands for. It's a 10-in-1 smart pledge. So you're going to look at what distracted driving is, and then you're going to go down, you're going to see discrimination. Then you're going to go down and you're going to see acts of violence with or without weapons. And the list goes on. I think number 5 is raise mental health. So a lot of these issues are going hand in hand with mental health,
Yeah.
and it's important that we show students, hey, you know what, we can get in touch with our emotions, we can rise above all of these things. 40 years ago or 50 years ago, we were taught to kind of put our emotions aside and just and deal with life and like, conduct our business, and our emotions really don't matter.
Right.
Well, now we're seeing that, you know what, emotions do matter. And it's really important that we kind of work through those emotions to get to our next phase in life, right? And not just harbor our emotions or our, our anger, our resentments, our,
Right.
frustrations. It's important that we talk through them and work through them to say, okay, well, I'm getting through this, so I can move to this. And so that's kind of our goal, is to teach children that, it's okay to have emotions. Here's We're all going to have that in life, but we have to work through that to get to where we need to be. And so, that's, a lot of what I put into the project was, just really just like, okay, how are we going to kind of solve some of these things that we've allowed to happen in society? And it's by no fault of our own. It's by growth in civilization and development and social
Right.
media and all of these things. So, yeah, I'm extremely grateful for the work that we have put into it so far. And, every time I do a talk with someone or something, I actually did one for the Rotary and International Rotary, and then we had individuals from, five other countries that were like, "Hey, we need this project in our, in our country." And it's, it's a 3-in-1 kind of thing. You're learning your own national statistics. Uh, Two, you have all of your crisis hotline numbers wherever, right
Right.
ever you need them on your app or on the website, and then the programs. So the programs, with the use of AI, are going to be developed in every single language, which, again, I'm so grateful for that I am part of the community with you, to be able to, we're learning all of this
Right.
AI, and it's just fascinating and it's so welcoming. So yeah, I'm super happy.
Yeah, so when I have so question well, I guess questions follow up kind of conversation with you, because there's a few
Of
different things
course.
in there that I wanted to kind of pull out and talk about, because I think, mental health awareness is one thing, and there's a lot that's being done about mental health awareness and trying to promote more equitable treatment and things like that. But I think when you talk about, particularly in schools, a big part of that mental health component is not just awareness and acknowledgement that people struggle and that we want to own it, but the actual specific tasks, right? You're
Mhm.
creating curriculum and you're creating talk points so that whether it's a parent or a teacher, some other professional, they've got ways to engage with the youth at the varying age, and that the kids have ways that they know that they can talk about those topics, because those are big and very heavy topics. And
Yeah.
I think go ahead. Let me let you, if you were going to respond to that.
Just you can go to when you go to the website, you can go to our educator resources and click on your student's grade level. There's 5 books for every grade level, and the mental health book, you're able to download and read through it prior to, showing your student. It's really, important, that you're showing the students, hey, you know what, it's okay. We all go through things, but we got to just kind of push through and not kind of not die, just sit there, right? Because we can get upset about certain things and just sit there and be like, oh, I'm so upset, I can't get through this. No, we gotta work through this. We gotta, get past it and move on. Friendships and you're just gonna have these emotional things that come in your life. God forbid, I hope none of you have horrible ones or bad things, but you know it just we have to work through them to get to the next level and
Right.
evolve. So back in our day, we had no go-to's or ways to get through things, and we just kind of had to just deal with it. Well, now
Well,
we're seeing it.
yeah.
Hey, we got to go a little bit a different route now.
Yeah, and I think, well, and all of those topics, the things that you mentioned when you go to the site, right? There's all these different topics, and they're really
Hmm.
heavy topics, and they're, to your point, it's important to talk about them, because I think we maybe, when I was in school, I can remember dissecting them for like their political or historical implications. Like, we talked about them in that very factual sense. There was starting to be at that point some awareness of like the emotional implications of those topics. But when we address those, which with the rise of social media and the internet, we're finding out about stuff really quickly, and it's frequent and it's all over the place. And so we're being inundated with all of that negative information, which we need to know about, because in order to be contributing members of society, we do have to be aware of what's going on and be able to create change. But we also need to be able to be understanding how to talk about those topics in a way that's going to be meaningful and productive, and that's going to be emotionally healthy for us. And when you put that into a content and you provide it to, and again, your curriculum goes K through 12, the message that that sends is, we understand this is difficult and we're going to work through it together. And as we all know from any experiences in our lives that have been challenging, whether they have to do with those topics or not, it is really validating when we hear from somebody that being overwhelmed by something or saddened by something is okay. Like, that's the normal response to that. And so by telling them, look, these are hard topics, it's difficult what you're going through, right? So you're owning and validating that emotion and that feeling, but you're also saying, and now here's what we're going to do. Right. So it's taking both parts of it. It's taking the part of allowing us to feel not alone and to feel understood and seen and heard. But it's also saying, like, what are we going to do with it? Because our youth are ultimately that's the next generation, right?
Yes.
So that's where we need to be starting this, and we need to be empowering it. And I love the way
Yes.
that, whether in this conversation or just when you and I have offline had chats, right? Because we both have a heart for youth. I was a teacher for
Yes.
many years,
Yes.
and they get a bad rap sometimes, right? Like, oh, this generation is lazy, or this generation is a phone addicted. Agreed, right?
Mhm.
There's definitely a phone addiction, but I'm not going to say I don't fall into it. But what about all the positive and incredible opportunities? You're right. They all have a phone in their hand, and we don't want them using it when they're driving. But what we can do is use those phones for positive change and meet them where they're at and help to create positive messages and positive momentum. Now, I'm curious for you, because I don't think we've ever talked about this. If we have and I forgot, I apologize, but I don't think so. Was your situation, your accident, you mentioned the accident that you were in that was because somebody was distracted driving. Was that very much a facilitator for you getting into all of these things, or were you really already on that track and that just kind of was an additional fuel?
No, that was the facilitator. I
Okay.
was just furious with what was going on. I had a brain injury, and my injury was misdiagnosed in the beginning. And it took my doctors 9 months to actually diagnose what was going on after my accident. So I went through, the brain injury and concussion clinic and rehab. I had to put sentences back together. I had a lot of things that were wrong. But, I think I know that really fueled my fire to get something started. And had I known, I didn't know what capacity, this would go into, but, it started out as a distracted driving campaign, and it was just baby steps in the beginning, right? Like, so again, it was a distracted driving campaign, and so I just took the baby steps as, like, I'm so frustrated. Yeah, I had a brain injury, but I was so frustrated. I knew I wanted to kind of make change, right? But I couldn't do very much. So
Mm,
so I'm like, okay, so I started just writing things down of what things could we do to help society, because it wasn't just my accident. 2 years prior to my accident, I was a theater coach in our local school district, and one of the students' sister, she rolled her truck the wrong way, and it rolled over and right into a tree. Now we don't know if she was, on her phone or not, and that will never be known. However, it was just one of those freak things that happened. And then a month after my car accident, my uncle went out for pizza to get his for family, and he never was able to come home because he was hit by a distracted driver. And so, it wasn't just my accident. It was those two, and then other things
right.
that I was seeing in society. And I put a lot of time into prayer and trusting God's word. And so whenever I would, make a shift on, oh, you know what, maybe this needs to be included or this needs to be included, I definitely think about things a lot. I make lists. I trusted a lot of advice from professionals. I have judges and neurologists, psychologists, emergency responders that I would talk to and make my notes on what
Mm,
would they feel would be a good thing for us as moving forward. And so I would always make my notes, and then I would come back and then I would see, on TV, oh, there was another a school shooting, or there was, some things with human trafficking. And I thought, well, wouldn't this be great to have a safe space for students that they could go to, learn our country's statistics, but then also provide them with resources they need to get in touch with somebody, right, in the, need of in a crisis situation. When I
right.
talk to students, I explain that the brain works differently when it's in crisis. Its abilities are to freeze, to flight, to fight, or to fawn. And so when we're in crisis mode, you can almost look at it as, when someone scares you, right? And they scare the crap out of you. Excuse my French. Anyways, like, "Ah!" Right? And so, like,
I
your
get scared easily.
brain,
Yeah.
yeah, your
Yeah.
brain's in this, like, "Ah!" And so that's the crisis mode, and that we don't really know what we're gonna do when we're in crisis. And so it's important that we're giving you the resources that you need. Yeah, there's, 988, 911, all of those numbers, but you know what? There's, poison control is on there, um, child abuse and neglect, human trafficking, things that we really don't think of that we might need should, anyone ever be in a crisis situation. So it's always just important that we're providing the resources that, someone might need in the event of a crisis situation. So, but the programs, I'm very, very impressed with our team and the programs that they've created because they are top notch. I really encourage parents of high school or of all ages, really, to get on board and just to really look at our programs um, and get them implemented in your school today. They are all free resources to teachers because we feel it is so important to get it out there and just really, really get it going as quickly as possible. Again, we've had some minor um, setbacks with our app, and we haven't really been super excited to introduce it to the media until I know it's got its I's dotted and its T's are
Right.
crossed, but we're getting there.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I've been on so in client work I did in the past, and hi, Mary, by the way, we see you. Um,
Hi.
I've done client work in the past that has involved, implementing apps. And I mean, there's a lot of pieces that come into it. And I think that sometimes people think now in the age of AI that you can kind of push a button and AI is going to like build the app and everything's going to be perfect. But all of the connections that have to be built still have to be built, whether or not there's any AI assistance or not. And so it certainly is a
Mhm.
process. And then testing it, you've got to test it on every device and, the different, formats and all these
Yes.
different things that can happen. So it's quite an
It's
undertaking. And I'm
insane. I had
sure you're
no
gonna have a
idea.
big party. Yeah, you're gonna have a big party. Well, because there are a lot of things out there now, like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but there's a million, and my head won't pull any of them right now,
Yeah.
where you can go and you can create apps, right? It'll be like, "Oh, create an app," and you create an app. But to do it at the
I
level that you're doing it with all of the stuff that it needs to be able to do in the ways of responsiveness, it's a big piece. So what is
yeah.
looking like the timeline for you now?
I would say, he was leaving, on Saturday, so I would say within the next week or so. But, I was going through fine details of it today. I'm like, "Oh, no, this needs to be capitalized. Oh, no, this needs to be attached," because all of our programs are on the app as well. So, that's one thing. If we do the presentations for schools or things like that, right now we ask for parent permission because we look at it like sex ed. Every single grade level has a book called Acts of Violence, right? And they're all very well put together. But, it just kind of shows like kids, hey, this should not be happening, right? Let's just look
Right.
at different ways that we can learn and grow, you know. So again, you know, these books were all created by people that have created curriculums for the Department of Education. So we know that they have done great work previously.
Right.
And they're, you know, again, they've done great jobs so far. So, you know, we're just happy to be getting it out there and sharing it with individuals. So,
Yeah, you just mentioned one of the things I was actually going to ask you about because I
mhm,
wanted you to speak to that because you've really brought in quite a comprehensive team to make sure that you're looking at it both from the statistics perspective. So you're understanding all of the broad scope of topics that have to be covered and the data that's necessary. But then on the other part, there's the instruction, right? It's not just like, let me take
mhm,
this information and put it into a book and now it's going to be called curriculum, but how is that information going to be disseminated? How are we going to check in to make sure that the students are understanding, or
mhm.
what follow-up activities? So big thing. I don't know if you want to talk about maybe the process you went through to kind of get that team together, because I imagine that's got to be pretty intense to kind of make sure K through 12, that's pretty big. That's not.
Yeah. So our lead designer, she actually has is on several boards and of a college right now. She's developed a curriculum for all grade levels. I was blessed to be introduced to her, and she's just such a great asset to the team. She comes with a wealth of knowledge, and she just her name is Beth Tucker, and she just really knows exactly what, you know, we're looking for when I say, hey, so this is the book that, you know, I'd like to have, and this is the kind of ideas that we need to have in it. And I give her the ideas, and she runs with it with her team. So I was really impressed with everything that she's brought to the table. So she's just an amazing person, and I'm very, very blessed to have her as part of our team. Now, with that said, every single one, every person that works on our team at Text Pledge has been affected by one of these pledges firsthand, right? So whether it's discrimination, disability, distracted driving, uh, so every single person has been affected, and I pray that no one has to be affected. But the way that I've never wanted to develop a team like that, but they've came to me and they said, this project really means a lot to me, and I want to be
Right.
involved with it because of this reason. And so then it really shows me their dedication to what they're doing and helping to create that change. You know, I love what I do. I don't just run Text Pledge. I've been a consultant and advisor to many business owners for, you know, the last couple years, and I love that job and what I've done. I've helped many business owners get through the pandemic. um, do I want to take a step back? Yes. Do I want to go out and present Tax Pledge more to individuals and to institutions and various businesses? Of course, yes. And I, you know, I believe that I am transitioning now. So I do wear a lot of hats right now, but it all works, you know. So I keep creating, and my team keeps creating. You know, people say to us, "Oh my gosh, this is great. Do you have this for adults?"
Yeah.
So we're working on that. We're working on that. We're working on the books in Spanish. We recognize, you know, right now each grade level has 5 books. We recognize that, you know, there's a missing book. It just helping students stay away from drugs and alcohol at the older levels. You know, the way we introduce things, we don't even introduce them until later on, till
Right.
the, you know, 5th and 6th grade. We're very, very cautious with that. But again, you know, we ask that parents, you know, give us their input. Let us know what they're thinking. You know, we want the parents involved if they can be. So
Right.
we make it really possible for everyone to be involved with Text Pledge. So
It's yeah, the conversation and used to the parent component, right? So, my
mhm,
husband and I had done some workshops locally last year, just because in regards to online presence and safety, because we realized, right, and it was funny slash not funny, but like some of the things that these emojis represent and some of the local, which my kids tease me.
Right.
My daughter's like, "You're not allowed to use that. That's not your generation." And I'm joking around with like phrases, but like there's a whole dynamic of drug and sexual implications in a lot of the phraseology and these emojis that they're using that I didn't know. And some of it you're kind of like, okay, well, that makes sense. But some of it I'm like, I don't even know where that came from, but they know. And then a
Yeah.
lot of these other apps and things like that have, they're innocent apps in and of themselves, but because of the way they're set up, they have these backdoor entrances to some really not good stuff that's out there, not that's on the
I
internet. And
know.
and kids don't, even high schoolers, right? I mean, your ability to kind of stop impulse. If you think about as adults, how we are like, oh, I want to check my phone, right? And we reach for our phone. You think about kids, so that impulsivity, and there's just so many things that they can get to. And so what we did was we walked parents through all of these different types of apps that sound really innocent. Some of them are, some of them aren't, and how the risks and the phraseology and stuff. And I mean, most people didn't know, right? And they would even like look, they said, I like asked my kid, did you know that? And the kid's like, yeah, I knew that. I mean, and we're talking elementary school.
Mm.
So, when you talk about the introduction of that stuff, because having a phone has become so much a part of our society that littler and littler kids are getting those phones. And then once
Oh,
you've
I
got
know.
that, I can tell you from having been through the blockers, putting the blockers on to try to, there's only so much that a blocker can do. And so as a parent, you've got to be able to
Mhm.
have really difficult conversations with your kid about topics that you may or may not be comfortable talking about. There's a good chance your child's not going to be comfortable talking about, but it has to happen.
Right.
And so
Oh,
your
for sure.
resources, and then asking parents, because that's the thing, like, this is
Mhm.
the conversation we're going to have in school, and you can have the follow-up conversation at the dinner table. And I applaud
Exactly.
that. I applaud that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I can't take all the credit for it. I don't want to either because we have such a great team that has helped put this together. I think number 4 is bullying and cyberbullying, and that's going to always change. I think our books are going to always be, redone every year as we keep moving forward in social media and how we interact with everyone, on on media, right?
Right, right, right.
Things are really changing, not just in the media. I mean, just with artificial intelligence too. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, it's I think it's amazing that we're learning all of these great things, but it is a little nerve-wracking in itself seeing, I think researchers are saying that 300 million jobs are gonna be replaced over time. That's a lot, right? So how we even interact with each other is gonna be different.
Oh, I just
Really
lost you. I
coming
can't
in.
hear you. Oh.
Are you
Oh, you
there?
had a call.
I'm so
Yeah, I can
sorry.
hear you. I couldn't hear you for a second. Oh, you had a call coming in.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
Yeah, it's
it's
okay.
funny. My husband told me the other day, he said, you got to keep your microphone a little over here or else the camera keeps like it focuses on the microphone, then it focuses on me. I forgot to do it and I think it was doing it again, but that's all right. They could hear us and that's what matters. But
Mhm.
yes, cyberbullying and I feel you and I know that you have an incredible team behind you. And certainly if we would like, we could list kind of once this goes up as a set post as opposed to being live, if you want to list some of those people out. But I'm sure it would take pages and pages, the amount of stuff that goes in. But yeah, there is a lot that's going to have to go into consideration. You asked the question about AI, and interestingly, end of last year, I think it was end of last year. It's a blur now. Everything's kind of a blur when it comes to timing this time of year. I did an
It does.
article I did an article, yeah, I did an article with Authority Magazine, and it was about the case for optimism, but one of the questions that they asked in there was about what are the concerns that people have, and then what are the positive benefits, right? So with artificial intelligence, there's an incredible opportunity for us to do some really impactful things, right? Like you think about people with disabilities and how it could potentially help to facilitate communication, right? There's great things. And then there are some not great things. Like you said, there are some people that are going to misuse it and they're going to take advantage of people with it, or
Mhm.
it's going to be used to replace jobs, not in a productive way, but in a like we're going to save money, but there's not necessarily going to be the necessary things in place. And at its core, right, AI should be used as a tool to help us to be expeditious and efficient and cost saving. Like those things are really important, but we do need to monitor and we need to talk about it. And we need to be okay with having the conversation and not having it as an anti AI or pro AI, but that AI is
Right.
here. It's going to be used. It's not going to go anywhere. And so how are we going to learn it so that we know how to use it, but
Yeah.
also learn it so that we know how to make sure we are being careful of what is and is not okay. Right. So
Right.
if you want to use
Yeah.
Chat GPT to research something, right, you can use it. If you want to use Chat GPT to act as something that's going to help you to check your grammar, but you do want to be cautious of not purporting to have said something you didn't say, right? Like
Right.
there's just a lot of stuff that has to get taken into consideration. And I think that the more that you, like, as you said, the more that we talk about it, that's what's going to allow us to maximize its potential and limit the downstream negative consequences of it.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah, there's so much and I think this is with everything. It's there always, I think as the way that we've been is there always has to be a yes or no, or
Right.
we're going to do
Yep.
this or we're not going to do that. There is some gray. We need to get through the gray to get to where we need to go.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think, and that's the beauty of your curriculum, right? It's helped kids to get through the gray because we prepare for things and then we respond to things, but there is like,
Mhm.
so when let's say some act of violence happens, right? I'm just going to use this as an example. Act of
Yeah.
violence happens somewhere else, so it's not happening where you're at. You're not in the actual crisis response mode that you're speaking of, right? That crisis that we go into
Yeah.
because it happened somewhere else.
Mhm.
But we are in an emotional response mode because when we
Mhm.
hear about these things that have happened other places, we're sad just because it's sad that bad things are happening, right?
Mhm.
But
For sure.
also, there is a part of us that says, okay, what if that were here? What would I do? What if that were me? What if that was my
Right.
family or my life? So that's the gray area that you're talking about. You're not necessarily directly responding or preparing for something that's specifically happening to you, but you are
Right.
addressing the fact that it's happening in your greater world. And you do need to maneuver through those emotions. And you do need to understand how you would prepare or react, even though you're not
Mhm.
currently preparing or reacting. So that's the curriculum, right? Is navigating through
Yes.
that.
Navigating through it and it's helping the students that might have those emotions that have anger in them. It's
Right.
showing them that there's another way to channel that and not to, act out in some of the ways that we've seen in society, right? We never
Right.
want someone to get to that point. In Michigan, there's a parent being tried right now for their son who shot up the school. I don't know if you've seen it on the news or not. It's one of the
Yeah.
first cases where the parents actually being tried. And you never want your student to ever get to that point where he's harboring so many emotions,
Right.
that they get to that point. So for us, it's really important that these programs are implemented at every single grade level because over time, they're reminding their own brains, like, hey, I did read that. Or hey, I know it's okay that I feel this way, but I know I need to, direct it in a different way.
Yeah.
I can be
Absolutely.
the biggest thing, and I teach, with students, I teach them the crinkle paper effect. How we treat others is actually how we're gonna, reflect ourselves. And so I'll ask a student to come up and I'll give them a blank piece of paper. It looks all fine, neat, and beautiful. And then I'll say, okay, crinkle it up really quick. And they'll crinkle it up into a ball and make it look really squeeze it tight and whatever. And then I'll be like, okay, so straighten that back out to where it was, if you can do that, and they look at me like I'm crazy, right? And I say, okay, straighten it back out. Can you get it? Can you get all the crinkles out and make it as smooth as
Mm,
possible? And they look at me like, no, I can't do that. And so I make sure that I remind them that, it's just like this clean piece of paper. It's just like our emotions and how we make others feel. Once it's done, and we can't ever go back to that spot, right? Just like the crinkle piece of
yeah.
paper, we can't ever go back to that. So the way that someone makes you feel is going to be different, right? And you're going to always look at them differently. And so yeah, we can say we're sorry until we're blue in the face, but again, how that person feels about us now Their emotions have changed,
Right.
and we need to always remember that how we're interacting with students and other, adults even, just how you make others feel has a direct reflection of you, not them. So,
Yeah.
that's one thing I try to help them understand. Like, you know what, you just are, your emotions really do play a big part of who you actually are.
Right. Well, and I think of too, one of the when you were talking about Michigan, because for me, when you think about how powerful it is for that student that's feeling the anger, the student that could
Mhm.
potentially end up who has a format to raise their hand and say, "I feel like that could be me." Right?
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of obviously a lot of stigma, and for good reason, a lot of stigma that comes with being the person that could be the potential perpetrator of violence. And so giving them
Yeah.
that format, not just everybody around to talk about how it's like to be in the situation, but the person that you can say, "Okay, it's I understand that you're feeling that. Let's
Right.
address it." That doesn't mean you're inherently a bad person. It's something that we
No.
can work on. That's essential, and that's gonna when they're younger, right? A lot of the times we hear about these stories
Mhm.
and these kids have been experiencing these emotions and there's been different signs. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody who didn't notice it, right? Because I think we're all trying to maneuver through a lot of new things that are happening as a result of many factors in our
Yeah,
world.
for sure.
But those indicators, right? So we want the people around to be aware of those indicators and be able to take note of those. But we also want to empower the people that are in that circumstance to be able to step forward and go, I need help. I don't, like
Mhm.
I don't know what to do with these emotions that I'm feeling. Because we're
Mhm.
much more inclined to come with somebody to be honest and share and say, I'm feeling really sad than we are to say, I'm feeling really angry and like I want to hurt somebody. That's not something we tend to feel comfortable wanting to share.
No.
And it's so important to be able to share that in order to intervene and to,
Mhm.
make people feel empowered and seen and heard in a way that's gonna cause corrective choices to be made,
Yes.
so
Yeah, so that they know that they're never alone. They can always reach
right.
out for help and just talk it through, really talk
Mhm.
it through, and they will get help. They will in turn, I do always say everything changes. Your situation will always change. And what you think today is not how it's going to be, 2, 3 weeks from now. It's all going to be different. So, and the kids, their brains are still developing. Another thing is,
Right,
you have to keep reminding them, your brain is still growing. My
right.
youngest is 27, or my youngest is 20, my oldest is 27. His brain is my oldest is finally done, but my youngest, I'm like, your brain is still going.
Yeah. Well, they
Let me
say, like,
help you
somewhere
get through
between
this.
25 and 30, right? It depends, but between, like,
Yes.
25 and 30,
Yes.
the and even after that, even after the baseline biological growth process, we're still growing if we put ourselves into a situation where we wanna grow, right? Like, it might not just
Oh
be the
gosh, yes.
all of the neural pathways, but there's a lot that we can do to continue to keep ourselves growing and becoming, a different version of ourselves and being the best that we can be at that moment, so I just happened
Absolutely.
we're at 37 minutes here, we've just been
Oh my
gabbing away
gosh.
here.
I know,
So
I
let
love
me
talking to
before
you.
we close out I know, what well, and I feel like a lot of the times we're in a conversation, but, like, something is coming up, so we have to end the conversation,
I
so I think
know.
we're to your point, we're just like, "Hey, alright." So, tell people where they can find you, if whatever contact information you would like to provide about the
Yeah,
program, the
sure.
website, your contact information, how they can follow you, I'm sure that
Yeah, you
they're
can go to textpledge.us and pull all of the books off the educator resources. You can find us on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, I think LinkedIn too. So, and I'm also on any of the channels. You can more than happy to email me or direct DM me.
I love it. I love
Thanks so
it.
much
Yeah,
for
reach
having
out.
me.
Yeah, this was fantastic. It's
Always
like
a
we just
pleasure.
yeah, it's cool that like each time we talk, even though we're talking about some of the same things we've talked about before, particularly on
Mhm.
this because we wanted to share with people, but different little pieces stand out that
Yes.
trigger different parts of your conversation. And it's really interesting to watch that take place. We could have the same conversation. Well, we could have a similar conversation tomorrow and go off on
Oh, I
totally different
know. On a
decorations.
different
But
tangent, yes.
um kudos to your whole team. Please, whoever on your
Yes,
team is watching, kudos, whether they're watching live or whether they're watching recorded. Please pass along my
I
my
will.
acknowledgement to them. I think this is phenomenal that what you're doing, and we're just going to continue making positive change, right? One step at a time.
Amen.
That's it. All
You gotta
right.
keep doing
Take care,
it.
everybody.
Thanks so
Thank you for
much.
joining us. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.